Hello, welcome to what is not a typical episode of Airshow Dispatches. Our regular viewers will know by now that normally we focus on one event per episode and we show as much of that display as possible. However, there have been several events this year that I've attended where I didn't come away with enough footage to do that. So I thought, let's combine all of those events into a single video and look at some of the best of the action that I haven't had a chance to feature in the more conventional style. We're going to look at 4 events over the course of this film, and we're going to start with actually not an air show, but something that happened at Boscombe Down in the beginning of July. Obviously, one of the big talking points of the airshow season this year has been the European tour of the Black Eagles, and for various reasons we haven't been able to bring you a full Black Eagles display, just the mini display that they performed at Southport. But I went down to Boscombe Down for one of their training sessions shortly before the start of their public events here in the UK and saw rather more of the team, and that's where we're going to start this programme.
So here we go, 8 T-50B Golden Eagles arriving in diamond formation. And completing a remarkable series of formation changes, first spreading out wide into albatross formation and collapsing shortly into eagle, 2 very challenging formation changes just a few seconds apart, which rapidly switch the team between wide and compact formation shapes. The T-50 has very good roll performance, as you would expect from an aircraft that is loosely based on the F-16. We're about to see that demonstrated by means of simultaneous aileron rolls. The T-50 was originally designed as an advanced jet trainer, specifically preparing pilots for the KF-16, hence the similarity between the two types. It has also evolved a light combat variant, the FA-50, but these aircraft are T-50Bs, aerobatic specialised versions with smoke generators and high-intensity landing lights on the wingtips in place of the missile rails. 2 aircraft in from each side now for the scissor pass. Here is one of my favourite manoeuvres of the whole show, developed in 2020. And that is extraordinary. A formation change by means of 4 opposing aileron rolls, and that is called the vortex. Black Eagles made quite a lot of changes to their display routine in 2020. Many of the manoeuvres were refined, if not replaced altogether. This one used to be an opposing 360-degree turn. It's now been replaced by a pair of more conventional opposition passes. Black Eagles have 3 types of show they can perform depending on the weather. We are watching the flattest of the flat shows here, as you've probably worked out by now, which is a shame because it omits some of their most original manoeuvres. But it's still highly entertaining, much more so than the equivalent flat displays of many other aerobatic teams, naming no names. And even in the flat show, they managed to squeeze in a heart, flown with approximately 1,500 feet of cloud base. Five aircraft now pull up for the Orchid, a bomb burst but with a unique Black Eagles twist. And coming up next, the rollbacks, again a common manoeuvre among aerobatic teams, but executed with so much flair and originality by the Black Eagles. You'll notice the head of Adrian from Plains TV popping into shot on occasion, and my thanks to him for making this particular trip possible. It was part of our warm-up, getting familiar with the team's display in the run-up to the air tattoo. Inverted bup now, the Black Eagles version of the Mirror Pass. And here is the Eagle Snatch, another very energetic formation change from line astern to a dispersed box. The T50 has had some surprise sales success lately, and it was announced during the tour that the fighter variant, the FA-50, had been selected by the Polish Air Force to replace the Sukhoi Su-22. Colombia also ordered the type this year for the training role, and in 2021, Indonesia requested its second batch of T-50s. That adds up to a total of 7 customers, with more doubtless to come. Now, the end of this very entertaining display practice, the victory break.
Later in July, I found myself at the Farnborough International Airshow, and I had in mind to record a full Airshow Dispatches episode there. But the reality is that people like you and me aren't really who Farnborough is aimed at anymore, and in the event, the flying display just wasn't long enough to construct an interesting episode. That being said, there were some extremely rare air display performances, the 777X for example, the A350, the 737 MAX, and it seemed a shame for all of that footage to go to waste. So here are some of the best displays from Farnborough 2022.
737 MAX 10 first up. This was the airshow debut of the MAX 10, the largest version of the 737 ever produced. Work began on this variant of the MAX in 2016. It's a stretched MAX 9 with approximately 2 metres of extra length. That gives the aircraft a maximum capacity of 230 passengers, which is 10 more than the MAX 9. This stretch was deemed necessary because the MAX 9 was being massively outsold by the latest versions of the Airbus A321neo, which can seat up to 236 passengers. The project gained further increased significance when Boeing cancelled the new mid-sized airplane project, which would have served a similar sector of the market. Entry into service was originally anticipated in 2019 but has been delayed, and Boeing is working towards certification sometime next year. Here is another Boeing product. It's the Farnborough debut of the 777X-9. Demonstrating some very impressive climb performance there, with the aircraft flying almost empty so as to reduce its weight. That, combined with two GE9X engines, allows for a quite phenomenal takeoff, because these are the largest and most powerful engines ever applied to a subsonic airliner. Take a look at it in some of these head-on shots. There's a fan diameter of 3.4 metres, making the engine nacelle roughly equivalent in height and width to the fuselage of the 737 we saw a moment ago. They are derived from the GE90, which was one of the engine options on the original 777s, but with a larger fan, a higher bypass ratio, and greater use of composite materials in their construction. That has allowed for a roughly 10% improvement in efficiency, as well as a 15% increase in takeoff thrust. This aircraft isn't all about new engines, it's also got a wider cabin, an optimised seating layout for higher passenger capacity, and all-new composite wings, which are so long the tips need to be folded upwards on the ground to enable the aircraft to fit into typical parking spaces. It's been a troubled programme though. The 777X was supposed to enter service in 2019. Problems with the engine delayed the aircraft's first flight by several months. Then the certification approval started to run severely behind schedule. An unexpected incident during a flight test has now pushed certification back to 2023 at the earliest, with deliveries not expected to begin until at least 2025. The 777X is expected to seat between 350 and 426 passengers, depending on its configuration. Here's an aircraft that is rather smaller than that, seating between 300 and 350. It is, of course, the Airbus A350-900, the smaller of the two variants of that aircraft family. This is an aircraft that is becoming increasingly mature in its service life, and given we've just seen two products that are encountering substantial delays, it's worth me pointing out that things don't always have to be that way. The A350 entered service in 2015, only a few months behind its original schedule. The A350 has now racked up over 900 orders, more than half of which have now been delivered. It's been the subject of some controversy lately though, with launch customer Qatar Airways, who found substantial fuselage degradation on their aircraft and have grounded some of them as a result. Several other airlines have now complained of a similar problem, and the row with Qatar got so nasty that Airbus actually cancelled all of Qatar Airways' outstanding Airbus orders. EASA, the European Aviation Safety Regulator, has ruled that the damage is cosmetic and does not affect the aircraft's airworthiness. Qatar Airways disputes that, and the case will go to trial next year. Other A350 customers will no doubt watch that with bated breath. Here's another aircraft that is very much in service, the Embraer E190-E2. For many years, Embraer has been one of the world leaders in regional jets. The E2 series is the latest iteration of some of their most popular products. The original plan had been to develop a clean sheet design, but the decision of Boeing and Airbus to pursue the 737 MAX and A320neo respectively pressured Embraer into refining some of their existing products instead. Compared to the previous versions, the E2 family jets have a higher maximum takeoff weight, better hot and high performance, and a 17% reduction in fuel burn, 11% from upgraded engines, and the rest from aerodynamic improvements to the wings and control surfaces. It also has a 15 to 25% lower maintenance cost per seat than its predecessors. Sadly, orders have not exactly come rolling in. Just 20 have been placed for the E190-E2 and around 240 for the E2 family as a whole. To put that into perspective, the slightly larger A220 is now on around 800 total orders. Here's something we haven't seen before, the British airshow debut of Turkish aerospace industries Herkus, making one of its first airshow appearances. The Hercules was designed for the training role with the Turkish Army and Air Force, intended to be supplemented by another indigenous trainer design, the Herjet. Turkey currently operates the Hercules B in very small numbers. That is a training specialised variant with a cockpit design that mimics the F-16 and F-35. The Hercules has also been aimed at the export market, especially the Hercules C combat variant, which is capable of ground attack, close air support and forward air control. The aircraft is designed to offer good value for money in low-intensity combat scenarios and is pitched squarely at nations with limited defence budgets. So far, it has won orders from Libya, Chad and Niger. Our last display from Farnborough now, and it's another TAI product. This is the T129 Attack, a multi-role attack helicopter based on the Augusta A129 Mangusta, and developed in partnership with Leonardo. The Mangusta entered service in 1990 and is used exclusively by the Italian Army. At one point it looked like various other European nations would also operate the type, including the UK, but they later selected the Apache instead. In 2007, Augusta and TAI agreed a deal to work on an improved version of the Mangusta for the Turkish Army, and that's what we see today. The aircraft was to be optimised for hot and high conditions, and that includes new Rolls-Royce Honeywell T800 power plants, which are roughly 50% more powerful than the originals. It also has a custom-designed target detection, acquisition and weapons control system. It first flew in 2009 and entered service in 2014 with the Turkish Army. The Philippines has also selected the type, and the first deliveries were made earlier this year. Various other nations, including Qatar and Iraq, have also indicated their intention to order the T129.
Towards the end of August, I found myself working at the Clacton Airshow, and I had half an idea to record an Airshow Dispatches episode there. There were a couple of reasons why that never happened. Firstly, most of the aircraft that flew at Clacton I'd already covered earlier in the year, and secondly, most of the flying was pretty far away and very badly backlit. In fact, it's the first time I've ever left an airshow early. That being said, on Thursday night there were some fantastic evening displays with very dramatic skies behind them. I very much enjoyed those, and I thought we'd take a look at a couple of them. Now, we're going to start with the Tigers from the British Army, and full disclosure, as you may have seen, they did have a bit of an accident as one of the jumpers landed. I'm not going to show that for obvious reasons. The jumper sustained only minor injuries, but we're going to look at the rest of their performance.
The Tigers have exited their jump ship and now commenced their display. But as you can see here, they have guests jumping with them. The dark blue parachute with the red and yellow bands indicate that that jumper comes from another British Army parachute team, the Silver Stars. The Silver Stars are the parachute team of the Royal Logistics Corps. The Tigers, who are performing the more complex elements of this display, come from the Princess of Wales Royal Regiment. Lovely view here of members of both teams landing on the beach, as seen from our slightly elevated vantage point. With the tide having come in quite substantially by this point and the prevalence of concrete groins at regular intervals, it was a rather small drop zone, and unfortunately that did become evident as one of the jumpers landed. But a very enjoyable jump up until that point. This is a team we haven't featured on Airshow Dispatches for a couple of years now. It's the Firebirds. The last time we saw them, they were called the Fireflies, and the pilots were Andy Durston and John Gowdy. John and Andy have since moved on from flying displays like this and have become among the most prolific and accomplished warbird pilots in the UK, flying for Ultimate Warbird Flights and the Aircraft Restoration Company. That means they have handed this team over to John Dodd and Nigel Reed, with the team name changing this year to the Firebirds to mark that transition. Broadly speaking, there are two types of firework on show here. Waterfalls are the trails of sparks from the wingtips, and Roman candles account for virtually everything else, the big glowing balls of colour basically. It's an absolutely glorious sunset. Clacton is southeast facing, which means the lighting conditions are about as bad as it gets during the mid-afternoon daytime displays, but come sunset, that orientation really comes into its own, delivering some very photogenic skyscapes indeed. Of course, at a lot of shows, displays like this would take place long after sunset against a pitch-black sky. We can't do that here. UK regulations dictate that all public air displays must finish 30 minutes after sunset at the end of civil twilight. But on an evening like this, well, I think I'd much rather enjoy these performances with some residual light in the sky.
Now, in October, I headed over to California to film an Airshow Dispatches episode at Edwards Air Force Base's Airshow. I hope you've already watched and enjoyed that. But the day before that event started, I couldn't pass up on the opportunity to go down to Santa Maria to watch practice day at the Central Coast AirFest. This was shaping up to be a really very good show indeed, and I had in mind to record an Airshow Dispatches episode based purely on practice day. Unfortunately, when practice day came around, it became clear that a lot of the aircraft weren't going to fly, and that included almost all of the warbirds. It really didn't feel right making an Airshow Dispatches film with so many of the star acts missing from it, so I never made that episode. But there are an awful lot of displays that did take place, some of which were very memorable indeed, and I couldn't bear to leave that footage unseen. So we're going to take a look at some of those performances now, starting with a Super Hornet tactical demonstration from the US Navy.
There goes an F-model Super Hornet of VFA 122, the US Navy's primary Super Hornet training squadron, with some 80 aircraft in their inventory. And it's fair to say, I've been looking forward to this. Rolling now. This is the primary fighter aircraft of the US Navy, Legacy Hornets having been retired and F-35Cs still being in the infancy of their service careers. In now for a dirty roll. And then a fast pass. Differences with the classic Hornet? Well, this aircraft is 20% larger and 3 tons heavier, and therefore much more powerful to accommodate that with 35% additional thrust. It has a higher payload, greater range and 50% greater endurance. It can also be equipped for a broader range of missions, including buddy-buddy refuelling, and in the form of the EA-18G Growler, electronic warfare. Vapour on the underside of the aircraft there during that negative G push. Quite extraordinary. The Super Hornet, as did the Hornet, has very good pitch authority by dint of those huge stabilators up by the tail, enlarged and moved rearwards on the Super Hornet to extend that lever arm. The wing area has also been substantially increased, as have the leading edge root extensions. Those root extensions form a vortex over the main wing, increasing its effectiveness and allowing it to continue producing lift at extreme angles of attack. During some of these manoeuvres, look at where the vapour is being formed. That tells you which bit of the wing is creating the lowest air pressure and therefore the most lift. And you should see the highest concentration of vapour is above those leading edge root extensions. And now commencing a legacy flight in concert with an F-8F Bearcat. Another military demonstration next, but this time from the Air Force. And it's a rather dilapidated looking C-17 from the 729th Airlift Squadron at March AFB in California. But the crew are from Hickam AFB in Hawaii. The aircraft arrived on Friday and swapped crews, engines still running, before taking off for this practice display almost immediately afterwards. This is the backbone of the US heavy airlift capability, with more than 200 C-17s in service. Compare that to the C-5, of which there are only around 50 operational examples. And of course it's flown by 7 other nations around the world as well, albeit the United States is the only country to regularly demonstrate the type at air shows. We're going to look at some of the few civilian displays that did fly on practice day over the next 10 minutes or so. First up, Eric Tucker in the J3 Cub. Eric has a variety of performances that he can fly in the Cub: conventional aerobatics, dead stick aerobatics, truck top landings, and of course there's what we're seeing here, the classic American comedy routine in which he pretends to be an unqualified pilot who has accidentally taken control of the aircraft. And with this display we see one of the great advantages afforded by the American regulatory system over many European countries, because the Piper Cub is not certified for aerobatics. In Europe, unless you want to go through the work-intensive route of getting some kind of annual permit to fly, that's game over. We don't really see airshow performances like this. In the United States, all you have to do is register the aircraft in the experimental category, and that opens the door to do pretty much anything you like. Not just flying in a more exciting way, but doing all manner of modifications, as we'll see later on. Truck top landing time, and I'm afraid we're not getting a very good look at this through all of the F-35s and Super Hornets parked in front of the spectator area. But that was very nicely done, on an unusually small platform to boot. Here comes Kyle Fowler in his long EZ. It's a canard configured kit plane with no vertical stabiliser and rudders mounted on the winglets. It features fixed main gear but retractable nose gear for better aerodynamics, and can be powered by any one of a smorgasbord of engine types. The designer was Bert Rutan, who also puts his name to such unconventional designs as the NASA Ames 81 with its rotating oblique wing, the Voyager, which was the first aircraft to circumnavigate the globe non-stop, the Proteus high-altitude telecommunications relay aircraft, Stratolaunch, which is the largest aeroplane in the world, and Virgin Galactic's Spaceship One, so little wonder his civilian kit planes look so unusual. Here comes Del Collar, in what his website proudly proclaims is the world's only jet-powered wacko. Well, perhaps that shouldn't be a surprise, because why would you expect more than one person to have built such a thing? The aircraft started out in life as a 1929 taper wing wacko, but it has since been structurally reinforced and fitted with two highly tuned power plants, a Pratt & Whitney 985 radial and a General Electric CJ610 jet turbine with a combined 4,500 pounds of thrust. That gives the aircraft a top speed of 250 miles per hour and incredible climb performance thanks to its thrust-to-weight ratio of greater than 1:1. Sadly, that's not something we see here due to the relatively low cloud base, but we can at least get a taste of this ludicrous machine's performance. A little bit of warbird action next, courtesy of R.T. Dixon in P-51D Mustang Swamp Fox. It was built in 1945 and spent time based here at Santa Maria before being struck off charge in 1957. It was then restored at Chino between 2007 and 2012 and painted in the colours Swamp Fox, depicting an aircraft that fought with the 8th Air Force in England in 1944 and 1945. Unfortunately, the ramp space here at Santa Maria is quite limited, and that necessitates the parking of aircraft along the entire length of the crowd line. That means that when aircraft fly low to the ground, and this being an American airshow, that happens a lot, it's very tough to see them, let alone film them. Now for something completely different, the Bolko B105 and Edge 540 of the Red Bull Air Force. We'll see solo displays from both of these incredible aircraft in a few moments, but first, a short sequence of synchronised aerobatic manoeuvres. Here, both pull up, the Edge performing a stall turn and the Bol 105 a pedal turn. And now diving back towards us for parallel loops. Developed in Germany in the late 1960s, the Bol 105 is widely regarded as the world's first aerobatic helicopter. That manoeuvrability made possible by its pioneering hingeless rotor system. It has had more than 30 military and government operators, and indeed it still flies for many of them today as a utility helicopter, anti-tank platform, maritime patrol aircraft, surveillance platform and medical evacuation vehicle. It was in the hands of the German army that the aircraft rose to notoriety as an airshow performer, and later, under Red Bull's banner, they operate Bol 105s at airshows on both sides of the Atlantic. pilot here is Aaron Fitzgerald. Flying the Edge 540 is world-famous airshow pilot and air racer Kirby Chambliss. He started flying aerobatics in 1985 and was later a member and captain of the US National Aerobatic Team. As part of that team, he scored the highest points in the freestyle category at the World Aerobatic Championships at Muret in France in the year 2000. He's also one of the only pilots to have competed in every single year of the Red Bull Air Race, claiming 10 wins and 32 podiums from 92 races. He finished the season as champion in 2004 and 2006. Today he's flying the same aircraft type he used for the air race, the Zivco Edge 540, a design that first flew in 1996 but which has remained relevant in air racing and competition aerobatics through various aerodynamic upgrades through the years. With a roll rate of 420 degrees per second and a maximum load factor of plus or minus 12 G. We've got one more performance to go, but we have, I think, saved the best until last. That straight away gives you an idea what to expect. Angel wings during that turn, 2 streaks of vapour streaming backwards from the vertical stabilisers, and there is much more of that to come. A frankly ludicrous amount of vapour to be seen during this performance, the aircraft basically dragging a cloud around the sky for the duration. This may be a single-engined aeroplane, but it packs quite a punch. A Pratt & Whitney F-135 engine producing 43,000 pounds of thrust. That makes it one of the most powerful engines ever applied to a fighter aircraft. Now a pass with weapons bay doors open. Four internal hardpoints, allowing 2.6 tonnes of missiles and bombs to be carried internally. There are 6 external hardpoints as well, with a capacity for a further 6.8 tonnes. Now in from the left for a fast pass. Watch for the vapour here. Not just a flash of vapour cone, but one which remained throughout the whole pass and beyond. That vapour shows us just how hard the aircraft is working to produce lift. The wings, the leading edge root extensions, even the fuselage itself generating vapour throughout this display. Like the Super Hornet, that high-lift design allows the aircraft to fly at very high angles of attack. It's limited to 50 degrees of alpha. Say it's limited to 50 degrees, I don't mean the aircraft is always capable of reaching that, but rather 50 degrees is the maximum angle of attack that the flight control software will permit. Any higher risks causing the aircraft to depart from controlled flight. Last manoeuvre, a tactical pitch, often known as the Dojo Drift, in honour of the first US Air Force F-35 display pilot. With that, we're into a memorable three-ship heritage flight sequence featuring a P-51D Mustang and P-38J Lightning. Even here, the F-35 drawing some remarkable wingtip vortices. It just goes to show how humid it was. We'd been under a bit of a marine layer all morning with a sub-1,000-foot cloud base, so it was very lucky that the clouds lifted in time to permit these performances. The three aircraft turn back towards us to pass over the crowd, and as they do, the demo team's spare jet comes nicely into view. So, enjoy the sight of three Lightnings, if only for a moment. Now the three aircraft prepare to split. And we are afforded a brief glimpse of the warbirds. This P-38 is painted as Skidoo. And it's operated by the Planes of Fame Air Museum. Also from Planes of Fame, the Mustang, Wee Willie 2. That museum based, for now, at Chino, but apparently considering relocating at least some of their assets here to Santa Maria. And so, that concludes a fantastic performance by Major Kristen Wolfe and completes our look back at the Central Coast AirFest 2022.
And that's it. I hope you think it was worthwhile bringing some of that unseen footage to you. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again for a full series of Airshow Dispatches, which starts in just a few months. Our first show, as I record this, is expected to be the Australian International Airshow in March. That'll be another event recorded by Nigel Woolley. So that episode will come along in only a few months' time, and then we're looking forward to another full year bringing you airshow action from around the world. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you see all of those films when they come out. Thank you very much for joining us, and until 2023, it's goodbye for now.